5 years of my life. 5 years of my life. Let's welcome Kevin.
Dear Kevin Parent, our university has received your application form to be a student. However, we regret to inform life often begins with questions. After reading that letter, I had one question. Dad, in the steel mill, are they hiring? And so I began a 5-year journey in my life. 5 years in a steel mill. I began working on a machine called SP01. It was about the size of 3 of these rooms. It began with a huge steel coil, which you put on with a crane on one side, and then on each spindle, there's about 12 more spindles, we would take that and wrap it around and make 12 smaller coils. One guy I worked with, his name was Buggy. We call him Buggy. He would, when we put the coil into the empty socket, we would put it there and press the button, and the hydraulic clamps would come and close it. One day when Buggy was working, he put the coil in there, and as he went to push the button, the coil came off, so he put it back in, came off again, so he put it back in, and he held it there with his thumb, and he pushed the button, the hydraulic clamps came and cut off his thumb. Blood everywhere. Buggy was off for the next 3 months, and when he came back, OSHA was there. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Hazard Association, which is a government agency. And OSHA said, okay, Mr. Buggy, tell us exactly what you did, because we've got to make sure this doesn't happen again. And Buggy said, okay. I put the coil in like here, I held it down with my thumb, I pressed the button, and right in front of OSHA, Buggy cut off his other thumb. Now you would think that me being an 18-year-old, I might say, I'm not going to work here. This is too dangerous. But my father worked in this mill. My grandfather retired from this mill. Both of my brothers had worked there. And during the Second World War, both of my grandmothers had even worked there. So this is my life. This is what I was expected to be. But happily, I transferred to a new department. And one night actually, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting down on the bench. I'm in this office all by myself except for Fat Teddy. Fat Teddy said, "You Kevin Parent?" "Yeah." "You Ron Parent's son?" And I thought, uh-oh. My father was management, we were labor. I thought there might be some little friction coming up here. And I said, yeah. He said, "I always heard that Ron Parent was related to Clarence Bowles. Is that correct?" And I said, yeah, he was my uncle. Now those of you who've been in schoolmasters for a long time, you may remember I gave a speech about my uncle, who we thought he had killed himself, though it turned out to be a mafia hit. And Fat Teddy said, he used to work in this department. He was my best friend. And that was cool for me because suddenly I was everybody's best friend. Suddenly, hey, this guy used to work here like 15 years ago? He was my uncle, man. And they wanted to hear all the stories about him, and they're telling me all the stories about him too. And it was, I became really kind of popular very, very quickly. And I met many people there, and I became very close to them, and I became good friends. And one of those people, his name was Tom Looper. Now, Looper had a vocabulary of about 25 sentences. Everything you said to him, he would reply with one of those 25 sentences. And that was like 25 sentences, and that's all you ever heard from him. You know, hey Luke, how's it going? And he would always say, same old jive 4x5. Yeah, what that means, I don't know. I didn't know either. But hey Luke, how's it going? Same old jive 4x5. Every day, same old jive 4x5. You know, if you ask them, you say, boy, isn't it hot out there? And you say, it's 104 in the shade. It could be a nice spring day. It's 104 in the shade. It could be 120 out there. It's 104 in the shade. And he just said that same sentence over and over and over again. And if you asked him something for which he had no reply, he had a special reply. And that special reply was, I heard that. Oh, I'm going home. I heard that. Hey, it's almost summer vacation. I heard that. Sometimes you would get the extended disco version. I heard that, Daddy-O. But my favorite one was, no matter what you were doing, it didn't matter. He would come up to you sometimes and just grab your arm. I got my eye on you. And walk around. I got my eye on you. But Looper, it was very fun talking to him at first, and he was almost a grandfather figure to me. He reminded me a little bit of my grandfather, in fact. But he would, sometimes it got a little tiring, hearing the same thing over and over again. And he became almost a symbol to me. A symbol of like a broken record, for those of you who are old enough to remember broken records. You know, it just kept repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And he became a symbol of what life was going to be like. That it was going to be the same thing, day after day after day. I had already accepted that I'm going to work here for the rest of my life. And one day, Ray Crass pulled me aside. Now, Ray Crass, we used to make fun of him. We used to call him Professor Einstein, because he had gone to college for one semester. And he looked at me and he said, how old are you? You like 19, 20? Yeah, 20? He said, you know, you working here, you prostituting yourself. Now, think about that expression. You're prostituting yourself. And there's a lesson in there for Toastmasters, because what he said I didn't fully understand, but the way he said it, the choice of words was so great that I remembered it, and I still remember it now. You prostituting yourself. He said, you're making more money than your friends, right? And I said, oh yeah, a lot more money. You know, they're all in college. And Ray said, it feels good now, but just wait. In a few years, they're going to pass you by. And they're going to be making a lot more money than you're making now. And they're going to be doing a lot less work to get it. He said, wait until you're married. Because when you're married, and you're still here in this mill, you're going to be trapped. Because when you're, right now you have options. You can leave here if you want, you can get another job down the street, you can go to college, you can do anything you want to right now. But once you're married, you're trapped. And I began to look around at all the people who I worked with, people who had become friends over the past several years. And I looked at them, and they all suddenly began to look trapped to me. None of them were especially happy. They were working here because they were married, they had kids, or a lot of them were divorced and had alimony, and they really, really were trapped there. You prostituted yourself. I still remember those words today. And I often think about what my life would have been had I stayed there. And I know exactly what it would have been like. It would have been same old jive, 4x5.